All right, here we go with part 2. I'm going to start with guided practice number 6 at the bottom of 603. And these are all trapezoid formulas, so I'm going to use this bottom one, which I'm sure you are in the process of memorizing. This time, I think kind of easy. We don't know the area, so we are solving for that. I'm going to plug in what I know. I'm going to say 0.5 because I'm using a calculator, probably. I'm going to add my two bases together. 13 plus 15 is 28 times a height of 6. Okay, now in this case, I don't need a calculator. This one, well, you might want to at some point, but this one I can just do half of 6. I could do half of 28. It doesn't matter. Either, whatever's easiest for you. But in my situation, I'm going to come up with 3 times 28. And then when I multiply 28 times 3, I get 84 inches squared for the area of that trapezoid. The next one is a little more difficult because they're asking you to find the height. At least they aren't asking you to find the base. I have a feeling that's going to come up. I'll try to do that one on this video. Okay, so we plug in what we know. We know that the area of the trapezoid is 216 meters squared. That's going to equal 0.5 times our two bases added together, which comes to 24. And we don't know the height. So we have 216. Half of 24 is 12. So my only sort of difficult math is dividing 216 by 12 to get h alone. And that comes out to 18. So the height is 18 meters. Again, let me remind you, it is not 18 meters squared because it is the height. It is not the area. Only the area gets squared. All right, this diagram is a messy example of number 8 in guided practice, and we need to find the area. Now, what is this shape? Well, I'm not sure, except it's 1, 2, 3, 4, a pentagon, because it has 5 sides, okay? So to find the area, this is much like example 5, where you were finding the area of a pentagon. You need to divide it into the area of this triangle and the area of this trapezoid, okay? By the way, this is a 7. Okay. So let's do area of the triangle first, and we will do A equals 0.5 times the base. Remember, this one's kind of upside down, doesn't really matter, but in a triangle, this right angle thing is pointing to the base and the height, okay, because the height has to be perpendicular to the base, and that's shown by this right angle sign, okay? So we're doing 7.4, that's actually the height, but commutative property says it doesn't matter which way you multiply, okay? Now for this one, I am going to use a calculator instead of finding half of one of those numbers because I would end up with a decimal. So into my calculator, I type 0.5 times 7.5 times 5. And I get 18.75. This is only the area of the triangle. Now I need to find the area of the trapezoid. Again, I start with 0.5. I'm going to add my two bases together, and that is 20 times the height of the trapezoid is here. And that's 5, okay? Half of 20 is 10 times 5 is 50 plus 1875 is 6875. And what are my units? Inches squared. Now, I am looking, the answer in my book is 68.5. I wasn't told to round, so somewhere I have done something wrong. Oh, and I see it, and maybe you caught it as well. This should have been 7.4, and I did 7.5. So hopefully as you were watching me go through that, you're like, wait a second, you wrote the wrong thing down. I know you're not surprised. I make mistakes all the time. But let me just quickly redo that multiplication. So this should be 7.4. And that would have given me only 18.5. And then that would have changed this as well to 68.5. Sorry about that mistake. All right, your homework requires you to do 3, 5, 9 through 25 odds, and 31. 31 is easy. I'm not going to go over it. 25, we haven't done one like that, so I'm going to do 26. If you want to try to solve 26 by yourself and then check the answer, it's fine with me if you don't do 25. However, I highly recommend you do one of these, and 25 is the only one with the answer in the back. So if it were me, since we're starting out, I would work through 26 with me and then do 25 on my own. You can check the answer in the back for that one. So 26 is drawn here for you, and we are to find the area of this trapezoid. But you will see we only have two actual integers in the problem. So same thing I say every time. Plug in what you know and you will get the answer. What we don't know is the area. So I'm going to use the variable a. Okay? Area equals 1/2. Adding the bases together. X is one base plus x minus 2. I just plug in what it says. Times a height of 12, okay? Now, I'm going to use the commutative property and do 1/2 of 12. That's 6. And then in here, I'm going to combine like terms. So this, the 6 is actually being multiplied to what I'm going to come up with in my parentheses, which is 2x minus 2. Okay, now I have to use the distributive property. So this is really going back and covering a lot of old math skills. 12x minus 12. Whoops, I forgot my x. Is going to be the area. Okay. So now, oh, you know what? I'm just now I'm looking at this and I'm saying there's no way we can solve for the variable because we don't know the area, but I see now that the area is written at the top. So make sure you notice that when you do 25. This is 168. So now I can solve for x, which is what the directions tell you to do. So I'm going to add 12. That's the inverse operation. That gives me 180 equals 12x. And then I just need to divide 180 by 12. And that is 15. So x is 15. And the directions said to find the value of x. And so we are done. You should be able to use the same process to solve number 25. All right, I'm jumping up on page 605, and I'm going to solve 22 with you for a couple of reasons. You're told to find the area of this triangle, and I want you to just look at it and think. I'm going to ask you a question, which you'll obviously answer in your head, but do you have enough information right now to find the area of this triangle? The answer to that is no, because the formula for area of a triangle requires that you have the base and the height, and you only have the base, okay? Right here. This is not the height. Why? Because it is not perpendicular to the base. Remember, when we talked about triangles in a different lesson, I told you that the height will be perpendicular to the base. So we have to know this measurement right here, which we do not know, okay? We know the leg, A, and we know the hypotenuse, C. So how are we going to find B? Hopefully you answered use the Pythagorean theorem. So I'm going to do A squared, which is 36, plus B squared, which I do not know, equals C squared, which is 100. Then I'm going to subtract 36 from both sides to get 64, and you should know that that will be 8. Now I can find the area by saying 1/2 of 8 times 6. Now this time, because I don't need a calculator, I'm going to show you a different way that they can be solved. Hopefully I'm not totally throwing you off. If you don't want to know a different way, just solve it and go on. But 1/2 of 8 times 6 can be written like this. I can put 8 times 6 over 2, okay? And then I could solve, and I would get 48 over 2, and then I would just divide by 2 and get 24. And that is the area of that triangle. But I do need units. It's centimeters squared. All right, I was looking back at some more homework problems on 604, and I wanted to do one where you have to solve for one of the bases. You have to do that in number 13, so I am going to work 16 with you so you can see how to do it. Again, plug in what you know and you will be able to solve it. So in 16, I'm going to plug in this information into this formula. I know that my area is 33 times 0.5, which is 1/2, of 3 3/4. Now I'm going to change it to a decimal because I'm using my calculator. Okay, base 1 is 3 3/4, which is 3.75. Plus, I don't know B2. Now, I'm not going to put the 2 because that doesn't really matter. It's just telling you that there are two bases times a height of 6. Okay. Now, without the calculator, I can do 1/2 of 6. So I have 33 equals 3 times this thing that I cannot combine because I have a variable and I have a constant. They are not like terms. So I'm forced to use the distributive property to get rid of these parentheses, okay? So I now have 33 equals, and I'm going to use my calculator, 3 times 3.75 is 11.25. Plus, and distribute the 3 to the b, and I get 3b. Now, you should, at this point, know how to solve it. I need to move the constant to the other side. I don't have my decimals lined up, but I'm going to use the calculator anyway. 33 minus 11.25 is 2175 equals 3b. So then I just divide 2175 by 3 to get 7 1/4. And that is the distance, the length of the base that we did not know. That's how you do that.